how are you? This is the first video in the Recycled Cage Decor series. We're going to start with cardboard. So in part one, we're learning about cardboard. This is just a regular cardboard box that something was shipped to me in. We're going to turn this into a hanging bed. We're going to start by cutting off these flaps and setting them aside. I'm going to use my box cutter. Now that that's done, we're going to poke some holes in the corner. So I'm going to poke one in each corner. So there will be a total of 8 holes total. We don't want them too close to the edge or the top edge. So let's put them about here. And you could use a sharpened pencil, a pen, a sewing awl, any sharp pointy object, a knitting needle, whatever, to make your holes. You could also use a hole punch if you feel super ambitious. Okay, that's literally all this box needs, is to be hung up in the cage. You could use pipe cleaners, you can use twine, whatever. We're gonna do that in a little bit. The first thing we're gonna do is struggle to open up this box so it's flat. Then we're going to cut the flaps off with a rotary cutter. This is because I don't like using scissors if I can help it. Once all the flaps were removed, I took the pieces that had adhesive on them and threw them away, and I kept the rest. Then I cut these into long rectangles. Now the next part, I somehow managed to lose footage of, so I'm going to show you on a paper towel what I did. I used my ruler and marked my piece of cardboard, and I want to say I marked it roughly every 2 inches. Obviously I'm not being nearly that careful on this one because it's a paper towel and I'm just going to throw it away when I'm done. It's just for demonstration purposes. And then I marked it going the other way about every 2 inches. What you get now is a handy little grid, and you're going to take your box knife, Stanley knife, X-Acto knife, whatever you're going to use to cut, and you're going to cut in between those lines, leaving a little bit of cardboard all the way around them, just like I'm doing with this paper towel. And to make the process faster, what I did on the cardboard is cut all of the vertical lines first, and then I turned the piece of cardboard and cut all of the horizontal lines. This just was easier for my brain to do rather than cut each square individually. It was just more satisfying. Save your pieces of cardboard though, because we're going to use them later. Next, I decided that the first piece wasn't quite as large as I wanted, and ideally I shouldn't have cut my box up quite so much, but my table's kind of small, so I did anyway. What I did is I laid my current piece on another section of cardboard and just traced around it like a stencil and left a little bit of a gap on one side. This was so that I could create a net-like pattern out of the cardboard, which is actually what we're doing here. We are creating a cardboard net fall breaker because those parrot nets are ridiculously expensive, and I figured not everybody wants to spend the money on them or can. So we're going to make a fall breaker with cardboard instead. From here, I used my ruler to just close the grid pattern on the side that had the gap. Vaguely. It wasn't perfect and it didn't have to be. And then we're going to repeat the process of cutting all those little squares out again. Now you should have 2 net-shaped pieces of cardboard. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to overlap them and hot glue using non-toxic hot glue. So I'm going to put one little end under, one over, one under, one over, and repeat that all the way up with just a little bit of hot glue. I just absolutely love this Gorilla brand hot glue. It holds so well. You could choose to be done here, or you can add more pieces to it, which is what I did. I wanted it a little bit longer, so I just added another chunk to the bottom. For this next item, we are going to use the scraps of cardboard that we had left over from the net, especially those little squares. We're going to use them to make a forging toy. And what we're going to do is use those squares as the bottom of the toy. Begin by cutting the strips you maybe have left over, and if you don't have some left over, cut some strips as tall as you want your forging toy to be. Then you're going to line them up next to the cardboard, and you're going to score it. This means you're cutting through just the top few layers and leaving a layer at the bottom that's intact. That way you can fold the cardboard along these lines. Make sure that each piece matches up with the side of your cardboard, square, rectangle, whatever. Like I said, this isn't precise, and that is fine. Now you have a couple options for how to assemble these. You can glue these on top of the square for your base, or you can glue the sides together and then push the base inside that. And I've done this both ways. Either way works just fine. You just have to kind of hold things in place for a few seconds while the hot glue sets up. Hot glue all these pieces together, and you should have roughly a cube shape that has an open top. I made a total of 3 little cubes for my toy just because I like odd numbers, and that's what made sense to me. Take some longer strips, and these are going to be used to cover the top of your toy. So cut those to desired length. I wanted mine to stick out a little bit, so I left them about a ½ inch or so on either side of the cube. I'm using a sewing awl to poke holes, but you can also use a sharpened pencil or a pen, a knitting needle, a pointy screwdriver, whatever you happen to have on hand that's pointy and can make a hole in cardboard. And you're going to poke the long pieces so that you can hang those. And then you're going to poke the bottoms of your little toy that you've just made. I took a piece of twine, cut it about 6 inches longer than I needed for the length I wanted my piece to be. Made a loop in one end, that's for hanging, and then I start threading everything on it. I did put a little bit of tape on the end of the twine just to make it easier to thread through the pieces. Then use any other pieces, and those are going to be your beads that go in between the cubes on your string. Start threading your cardboard pieces in whatever order is desired. Make your holes bigger or smaller as needed. And thread your little boxes on. Continue threading the pieces on until your string is full. Tie a knot underneath and clip remaining cord away. When you're done, you should have a little forging toy where the rats can move the cardboard out of the way to get into and is safe to be chewed on.